Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I'm Aisha Novakovic and welcome to another edition of Roots TV. Roots TV is all about bringing stories about people who are ordinary doing extraordinary things. One such guest on tonight's show is Khadija Al Kaddour. Khadija Al Kaddour is currently running the Motherhood Circle at Brookman House in Langford. She also runs workshops called Peaceful Pathways for Muslim youth and women. She completed her degree in 2012 in social sciences, majoring in family and children's studies. When she's not busy either being an active member in the community or running these workshops or studying, she's also a busy mum of 4 boys and a stepmother to 2 young men. So welcome to the show, Khadija. It's lovely to have you on the Roots TV couch. I'm very excited with the topics that we're going to cover tonight. Now, tell me about this Motherhood Circle that you're running. It's an amazing initiative and you have a great group of women who are attending on a regular basis.
That's right.
How did it all start?
I had just come back from Malaysia in March last year. I went and lived abroad for 14 months and I was kind of maybe had a bit of itchy feet and thinking what can I do, and I had completed, like you said, my Bachelor in Social Science and Family and Children's Studies, and I've always been very passionate about children and parenting and anything related to that and empowerment of women. And so I decided that I wanted to do something around mothers, something to empower mothers, something to do relating to parenting. So I got in contact with Parenting WA and they said, look, we've got the venue, been looking for something that targets Muslim women, but they didn't have the resources or they didn't really have the setup, basically. They had the setup, but they didn't have the facilitator for it. So I thought, great, you know, I can do this. And then I basically asked a few people from the community what their views were about starting up a motherhood circle. The idea really stemmed from the fact that there was nothing that was really Islamic-based parenting, and I thought that was really important. But because we always have, there's parenting workshops on, emotional development, physical development, all the parenting and discipline and that, but it doesn't have an Islamic ethos to it. And I wanted to add that in because I felt as Muslim women, you feel more comfortable to talk about issues that also relate not just to our children's upbringing, but also Islamic related issues as well. Some of the activities that the Motherhood Circle do is, one of the great things about it is I've been able to draw from facilitators from our Muslim community, which has been really awesome because we have so many professionals in our communities. We have people in our communities that are qualified in certain areas, and I co-facilitate with a really great sister, Samantha, and she does a lot of the child development based areas. I've done, I had Aziza come and do protective behaviours, which is basically teaching children things that help them to protect them from violence and abuse and how to keep them safe. We've done nurturing Iman workshops with Hiba, who is a psychologist. And
what does nurturing Iman actually mean?
Nurturing Iman was a very popular workshop, and we did 2 sessions. We did one at the Perform Arts Centre and we did one at Parenting WA. The workshop was basically how do we nurture our children's faith in a way that their God consciousness is there, where they have that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think we basically focused a lot on Aqidah and Tawheed, so the oneness of Allah. Who is Allah in your life? And I think that's really seemed to be a missing part to a lot of Islamic parenting or Muslim parenting in general, because it doesn't, we talk a lot about other things. We look at the outward appearance, so we look at haram and halal and that, but really we don't work on that inner relationship, and that is really the most important thing. And that relationship with our Creator, with our Maker, with our Sustainer. And if we can nurture our children to have that awe and love and reverence for, Allah as our Creator, our Maker, our Sustainer, the most merciful of those who show mercy, then we're bringing our kids that natural love towards their Creator and that natural gratefulness for the blessings that He's given us. So I think for me, it was trying to change people's mindsets that when we bring up children as Muslims and as Australians, that Islam is a lot about your actual personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for explaining that, because some people tuning in maybe wouldn't know what Iman would mean and what that would entail and what kind of activities you'd be running at this Motherhood Circle.
I suppose, like, when I think about it, when I studied a lot and when I studied a lot of child development and child psychology, you find at uni that they cover a lot of physical development and emotional development and psychological and social and that. We cover abuses and all these things. But I found spiritual development and moral development wasn't something that was focused on in the university ideology of child development. So for me, it was like, Islam puts a lot of emphasis on spiritual development. And I think that's really important to focus back onto that, because, you know, we live in a world, especially, and this is one thing really hit me when I came back from Malaysia, is that we live in a country that has very high anxiety and depression rates. And when we look at women and mothers that have anxiety or depression, the intergenerational effect of that can be very much be passed on. So we know that, you know, research shows us that women that have depression, for example, their children, 75% will be likely to come into adults that become depressed. So I always go back to that theory, you know, it's better to bring up strong children than it is to fix broken men and women. And I think this is very crucial to the Motherhood Circle for me, is that how do we tap in as to be the best parents that we can be in the lifestyle that we live in, as well as being a Muslim and showing a good role model.
Well, it sounds like there's so much passion behind this Motherhood Circle and the reasons why you want to go ahead and continue this amazing program. So we're going to talk more about that in a second, but now we're going to go to a short break, so join us after these short messages.
Froggy Tuition Centre specialises in English and Maths tuition for students in kindergarten all the way up to Year 10. All our programs are aligned with the New South Wales Board of Studies syllabus outcomes.
We firstly assess your child to discover their strengths and weaknesses in order to help them in the areas they require a boost in, and then take them to the next level in those topics which they already understand.
In an average school classroom, there is often one teacher for up to 30 students, which unfortunately makes it difficult to give full support to those students who need it. Our classes are designed as small group sessions, covering both literacy and numeracy modules, which allows for quality teaching to take place.
There are numerous benefits of group tuition, which include students being exposed to a wider range of ideas from peers which they may not have thought of themselves.
It promotes a healthy, competitive environment from like-minded students wishing to achieve their best.
It replicates a school environment, but on a more manageable level.
And we also offer one-on-one tuition. Over the years, we've gathered a wealth of resources which our students can access. We will work closely with your child in order to provide them with unique and effective tuition, mentoring, homework support, study tips, exam tips, as well as preparation for NAPLAN, OC and selective school entrance exams.
Our simple explanation of concepts would mean your child will finally understand how to solve those complex maths questions, as well as improving their grammar, reading and writing ability.
Our enthusiastic tutors provide constant feedback, so you know exactly how your child is progressing. So don't waste any more time. Give us a call today to see how Froggy Tuition Centre can help your child leap ahead.
Welcome back to Roots TV, and we have Khadija Al Kaddour joining us on the Roots TV couch for a chat, and we're continuing to talk about parenting in Australia as a Muslim, as particularly a Muslim mother. Now, you've got 4 boys, and you've got 2 gorgeous stepsons.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And I also have 2 boys, and I know that as a mother, as a single mother, as a Muslim mother living in Australia, well, being a mother in general presents, it is very challenging regardless what background you come from, which country you live in. So from your perspective, what's it like? What do you think are some of the really unique challenges that are presented to Muslim women raising their children, particularly boys? I'd like to hear what your perspectives are on this topic.
Yes.
Because I just think they're strange creatures, to be honest. Didn't grow up with boys.
I love boys. Oh, that's right.
I grew up in a
family of all girls.
Of all women, that's right. 3 younger sisters and no men. So it was a bit of a shock to the system when I gave birth to 2 boys. Yes, so.
That's interesting, actually, because a lot of people will come up to me and say that. They're like, oh my God, you've got 4 boys. And they'll be like, oh my God.
Exactly.
I just think although I knew that I could handle four boys. Well, my first parenting role was a stepmother. And
you were a young stepmother.
I was young. I was very young, and it was challenging and it was heartbreaking, you know, to see my stepchildren have to share 2 homes, and it was, I think, one of the main reasons that I did get into family and children's studies. I got into something that I actually really wanted to get into protective behaviours originally, protective child protection and stuff, because that's always been something that's very I'm passionate about, the positive upbringing of children.
And I can see that it's really coming through.
Yeah. And then when it comes back to my 4 boys, I'm so blessed, alhamdulillah, you know, 4 boys, like, they're awesome. I have 4 brothers, so I probably had a bit of training there. As you know,
yes.
I came from a big family. I have 8 siblings. So,
that's right.
Yeah. Also had part of my upbringing, had a single mother as well. My parents separated when I was 14.
Who's an amazing woman, by the way.
Yes, thank you, Aisha.
I hope she's
amazing too.
I hope she's watching this and she knows that she's an incredible.
Please go out there, you told her.
She's an incredible human, absolutely.
Yeah, but back to the question about upbringing of boys, I think it's really, you know, we all know it's a challenging job, whether we have girls or boys, and parenting in Australia isn't easy. And
why do you say that?
I think because, especially as speaking from as a Muslim perspective, it's becoming harder to bring up our children where they're able to still feel positive about being a Muslim. And I think that really is.
Oh, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yes,
especially in this current atmosphere of rising tensions.
Yeah, and we're basically living in a time post September 11 where, you know, we've got institutional Islamic phobia. You know, it's happening in the media, it's happening in the government and things like that. So this wasn't something that was always so in our face, and this is what our children and our teenagers are having to face. And I do have a worry that as my boys grow up and whether they will be disadvantaged because they have a Muslim name or because they practice being Muslim. And it's something that does worry me. I think the most important when it comes back to parenting, especially as Muslim parents, is to always put a lot of positives into our children. And having boys really need positive male role models.
That's so critical, isn't it?
It is so essential, because those boys, I need to know that they are awesome, that they are very special, and that, you know, fathers can do that, coaches can do that, uncles can do that, and this is really important. You know, friends can do that, male role models.
And do you think that just generally, you know, the culture we experience doesn't really allow space for men to be masculine if that means they're going to cry or show any softness? So it can be quite difficult for a boy to...
Yeah, definitely. Well, the definitions of male in the society that we live in is very confusing. You know, you think about that during back the Sahaba times. And you think
and the
about
Sahaba, for those people who were the companions of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, but you think about them, they cried a lot.
They were quite emotional.
They were very merciful men. And they worked with their women, they supported them, they empowered them. You know, look at Khadija Al Kaddour, you know, she's my role model. She was a businesswoman, and she was the one that proposed to the Prophet. And how... You know,
and she was 15 years older than the Prophet Muhammad and his employer. So this is a really nice segue into our next topic. This is something that's really close to both of us, about the role of a Muslim woman in contemporary society. Sometimes there's a lot of uneasiness that we experience as Muslim women being out there in the community, from our own community in actual fact. What are your feelings and your views about this topic, about being that practicing Muslim woman in contemporary society?
I think the role of a Muslim woman is one that she needs to be part of the community. She needs to contribute to the community. She needs to be a role model. Going back to that, I still think there's a very important balance where she is the mother. She is the school of the first school of her children. And every family unit, we have strong family units, that will actually support a strong community. In saying that, when it comes to women and it comes to their role, I think there needs to be more support towards Muslim women and less criticism of Muslim women that are out in our community trying to make changes and trying to do...
And have you seen that kind of criticism? And could I ask, without, you know, depends on how much detail you want to share, but have you yourself experienced any criticism from either the Muslim community or from the broader community?
I think no, not from the broader community. From Muslim community, when I wanted to start the Muslim Motherhood Circle, I did consult a few people, and I found that I got a lot of negative feedback from certain people. And then I had this brilliant phone call, and I called up, she called me, Fahia from Muslim Women's Support Centre. She's a great volunteer. She's always
I know her. She is an amazing sister as well.
She's always volunteering. She's always doing things.
Very dedicated.
Yeah. And so
I hope she's also watching this episode.
And then I talked to her before I started the Motherhood Circle, because I was starting to feel like, am I doing something not right? And then she
And why
said
did
to
you
me,
feel that you weren't
because
doing
of the
something
negative-
right?
I had some negative feedback from people. And I think that's what it comes back to, that empowerment, that women need to empower each other and support each other. And Fahia was an awesome example of that. That phone call basically was like, yep, Khadija, you can do this. I want you to do this. We need this. You'll be brilliant. You can do it. This is really important for our community. It will better our parenting skills. You know, it's support our children. There's so many women that call up and need support, not sure how to discipline their children, not sure, you know, even what foods to eat, you know, sleep time, all these things, you know, that to help support, you know, a stable and healthy family.
Absolutely.
And yeah, she just gave me the inspiration to say, yeah, I can do this. And I think at the end of the day, sometimes you're damned you do, you're damned you do, you're damned you don't.
Exactly.
And I think at the end of the day, if your intention is for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the key. As long as you know that you're doing the right thing between you and Allah, then no one's criticism really matters at the end of the day. And I think that's really comes back to it, because before I started the Muslim Motherhood Circle, I did make a lot of dua, asking Allah, if this is a good thing for me and good thing for the community, let it be successful. And alhamdulillah, you know, we've done 16 workshops since then, sessions, and alhamdulillah, most of the time I get a lot of positive feedbacks from the mums, and it's awesome when they come back and say, you know, I've implemented this, or you know, I'm not shouting as much as to my children, or you know, I've become more outdoors, or I'm more nature-based, you know, all these things that, you know, nurture children. And or if a mother just says, you know what, I stop and spend some quality time with my children, or I've encouraged my husband to, you know, not work maybe extra hours on a certain day, and this is something my husband does once a month. He'll do the boys' dates, and he'll take the boys out, just him and the boys, and they'll go, you know, have gelato, ice cream, or waffles, or whatever, and we call it the boys' dates, and that's just father and him time, and that's what's important, that quality time between fathers and sons.
So simple and yet so impactful.
Yes, in the busy lifestyle that we live in.
Khadija, we still have a little bit more to cover, and we will come back straight after this break, so don't
Imagine
go
living
anywhere.
through civil war. Thousands leave their homes seeking safety elsewhere. Many desperately need food and medicine. In Syria, this is the plight of ordinary people. Among the vulnerable are tens of thousands of Palestine refugees. UNRWA provides shelter, food and healthcare, but we need to do much more. Please donate now at unrwa.org/donate. Thank you.
And welcome back to Roots TV. And I hope you didn't go anywhere, because we're about to touch on the topic of identity with our special guest, Khadija Al Kaddour. Thank you again for joining us at Roots TV.
Awesome to be here, Aisha.
Thank you. Now, Khadija, you and I go back a long way.
Oh God.
We've known each other, let's not count the decades. We even were neighbours at one stage.
Yes,
Those were interesting times. So I know you personally. I know that you have a mixed heritage. You know, you're a bit of a hybrid like myself, and I think it's becoming more and more common in our community, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, no, most of the time. And I wanted to talk to you before I let you go about what it means to have this multicultural background, and your children are also even more multicultural, and how does that intersect with the Islamic identity and living in Australia?
My children have about 8 nationalities.
Oh
so,
God,
yeah.
They'll definitely be confused, more so than my kids.
My mother converted to Islam in the late 70s, so I'm 7th generation Aussie on my mother's side, and my father's Lebanese. And
do you find it appalling or quite surprising if people ever say, go back to your own country?
Oh, it's just funny when they say that, because you just think, okay, where am I supposed to go?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that your Muslim identity was very much shaped personally for me. The first 12 years of my life, I was the only Muslim family in a public school in Wollongong, about 2.5 hours from Sydney. And so I actually didn't associate much with born Muslims or around Muslims. So the biggest influence in my life basically was my convert mother. And I think I had a big affiliation with converts for a long time, up until my 20s, because I just felt most comfortable around them. And so I learnt my first Islam from my mother, who did an awesome job, because she really inculcated into us a real relationship and trust towards our Creator. And I think that that has really given us, all of us children, I've got 8 siblings, a very good positive image of Islam. When I became a teenager, we moved over to Perth, and then I had to associate with Muslims. It was a big shock.
It's a culture shock I've experienced, though.
It was a big culture shock, definitely a culture shock, because we all come from different cultural backgrounds. And it doesn't always mesh well. No.
It does take work.
And it's really scary to see nationalism very profound, and people's keeping to that, when it's something that the Prophet himself didn't say, that an Arab is no superior than a non-Arab. So and I was always I think when it comes back to Muslim identity, I always identified myself as an Australian, and I identified myself as a Muslim, and then I think as I've become older, I still think of myself as an Australian, I still think of myself as a Muslim. I love I suppose what really gets to me is that I'm very, very lucky that I wasn't brought up on culture. So my Islam was very clear, and I knew exactly what the Islamic values were. And one thing that, if you had to add in a bit of culture, my father, being Lebanese culture, was extremely generous. And these kind of values were things that...
but just to clarify, when you say that you were very lucky not to be brought up on culture, are you saying that culture is not always a good thing, or what do you mean by that?
Culture is very important in people's lives, and it's a very huge part of who you are. But being brought up where the mix of culture and Islam are together sometimes affects people's identity as a Muslim, because sometimes it's not an Islamic rule, it's a cultural rule. And so that I didn't have that confusion. I basically being brought up by a convert, I was being shown Islam in a very clear way. And this is the Quran, Sunnah, this is what it is, basically, and this is the Islamic values. And a lot of those values are very Australian values when you think about it. And I think the only thing that had the most crushing effect on my Muslim identity was, Islamic phobia over the years. But I think that has made us, personally for me, that's made me a stronger Muslim. And I'm proud for that I am an Australian. This is my country as much as it is for anybody else. And a lot of Muslims, especially our children, are 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation Aussie. So we have a very beautiful heritage as well in this country, and we should be really proud of ourselves.
Well, thank you so much, Khadija, for sharing your experience on so many different topics. And for those women who are interested in joining the Muslim Motherhood Circle, they can get in touch with us through Roots TV to get in touch with you. Yeah, or they can like Muslim Motherhood Circle on Facebook. I've got a page up on there, and it usually just lets you know the events and what's going on. Yeah, or they can email me at khadijahia@hotmail.com. Thank you so much once again for joining us on Roots TV and having a chat with me on our couch. It was absolutely brilliant. It's always an honour to chat with you, always learning so much from you, Khadija.
Thank you, Aisha.
You're welcome. So thank you for joining us here at Roots TV. Roots TV is a community-based YouTube channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and also find us on Facebook. This is Aisha Novakovic, wishing you all peace and mercy.